All right. Okay, so for tonight, so the first discussion is about diagnostic tests, surgeries, and procedures. What I did here is I collected the most common diagnostic test procedures that you may possibly encounter in NCLEX and put it all together in one lecture. Like for example, CT scan. CT scan can be used in different systems. And as we discuss in the coming weeks, the systems, I don't want us to keep on going back discussing CT scan. So once and for all, let's discuss the most common diagnostic tests and procedures that you may encounter in the majority of these systems and majority of these nursing concepts. And we'll discuss them at one point, at one time. Okay. So first, one of the possible questions, one of the possible questions that you may encounter in NCLEX is about an informed consent. Some of my students, and by the way, NCLEX is computer adaptive. The questions that you have encountered when you took your NCLEX before, you will not encounter them again. The computer can remember the questions that was given to you in the past, so they will not give it to you anymore. But the concept is still there. So it doesn't mean that you will not be asked about diabetes. You will still be asked about diabetes, but it's going to be a different type of concept and questions. Do you understand? Now, majority of my lecture is a product of my previous students' feedback. Hey, Mr. Arado, I encountered questions about informed consent, and this is what I encountered, and I put it in my lectures. This is how I created that binder. Those are byproducts of my students' feedback who have taken their NCLEX. Okay. In the previous NCLEX that my students have witnessed or have encountered, when you talk about informed consent, the most common question that you may probably encounter in NCLEX are questions about eligibilities. That's it. Meaning, which among these clients in the options are eligible to sign this consent? That is the most common questions. It could be in the form of select all that apply. So you will see here, this group of people who are not eligible to sign a consent. The bottom line here is when you have a patient sign an informed consent, the patient must have an understanding of the procedure or surgery, and the patient can make decision. If the patient is unable to fully understand, if a patient cannot make or is not able to make a decision, then that patient is not eligible to sign a consent. Like for example, you have it in front of you, mentally ill individual. Among all of these nurses, what came out in NCLEX is letter D, under the influence of medications. When a patient was given any kind of medications that depresses the level of consciousness, that means the patient is not anymore, capable of thinking right. So that means that makes the patient ineligible to sign a consent. There was an actual scenario that my student encountered in her NCLEX. The situation was the patient is scheduled for a surgery, and the floor nurse have given already the pre-anesthetic agents. The pre-anesthetic are usually anti-anxiety drugs. However, after administering the medications, they found out that the patient has not yet signed the consent. Question: can the patient still sign the consent after the nurse have given the medications, the pre-anesthetic medications? Yes or no? What do you think?
No.
The patient is still conversant. The patient could still think. The patient is still okay. It was just like a few minutes after the administration of the medications. Can you still give the patient the form to sign for the consent? Yes or no?
No.
No.
Mm.
Okay. It should be like before. Okay, not after the administration. Those kind of questions. Okay. Another questions that my student encountered was this. By the way, when I say previous NCLEX questions, these were all the concepts that my students gave me that I remember that I'm giving it to you. Okay. Another situation was the patient was 17 years old female. So that this patient has a child already, but this patient needs to go through a surgery. 17 years old, but has a family already. Can this 17 years old patient sign a consent? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, by virtue of being emancipated minor. Okay, so if a patient is a minor, so what age? What age of reason? What age is eligible to sign for a consent? What age do you know is eligible to sign for a consent? What
18.
age?
18.
18. Okay, 18 years old. But this patient, even if the patient is 17 years old, the fact that she has her family already, she is now considered as emancipated. And because of that, the patient now is able to sign a consent. Okay, that is emancipated. Hold on, let me close my door. Hold on. Hold on. Okay. So remember that. So you have these eligibilities and the emancipated minor. Okay. Let's proceed. Let's move on. Now, the way we will discuss the other, that's for the informed consent. By the way, informed consent are needed for all kind of procedures that are invasive. Okay, that are invasive. Now, for the rest of these diagnostic procedures, to make it like more organized, so we will discuss this per system. Okay, let us start first with neurological system. One of the most common possible procedure you would encounter under neurological system, or you would encounter in the question, is lumbar puncture. Another term, okay, another term for lumbar puncture is spinal tap. Okay, spinal tap. Okay, so there's a question here about those who are in the military. Okay, same thing, same thing. If the patient is in a very far out place, and there is no any other relatives, for example, who can sign a consent, or any other person, and the patient is unconscious, the patient is at the brink of death, or in the death or life situation, so they can waive the consent, so the doctor can proceed with the procedure. Okay, if there's no any other person who can sign on behalf of the patient, because the patient is unconscious, the patient is severely, should I say, like injured. Okay, so the doctor can proceed with the procedure. Okay, if that patient is in a very remote place, and there's no any other way to contact any close relatives. Okay, so that's how you would do it and see it. By the way, sometimes in the chat, it's kind of late that I see it. Okay, so please bear with me. Okay, now, so for the other, okay, for the other, so we'll discuss this like per system, like what I've said, for the lumbar puncture. Another term that they use in the previous NCLEX is spinal tap. Spinal tap, or TAP, that's just the same. Now, before I proceed, when you talk about diagnostic procedures, there are three main aspects that I want you just guys to know if you are studying them. Number one, you need to have an understanding of the purpose of the procedure or surgery. Purpose. What is the purpose? Number two, preparation. First P is the purpose. Number two is the preparation. How would you prepare the patient? That's the most common question in NCLEX. And lastly, the post-procedure health teaching. Post-procedure teaching. So three P's, purpose, preparation, and post-procedure teaching. So these are the three main aspects that NCLEX is asking students about procedures. Like in this case, nurses, what is the purpose of lumbar puncture? Say, there's a lot for them to check for the infections, for the cause of infection, right? So that's the main purpose of this lumbar puncture, for them to know, if what kind of specific microorganisms, is causing an infection to the patient. Now we know that. By the way, in NCLEX, you will not be asked about the definition. That is non-NCLEX. The purpose of you knowing the purpose is for you to have an understanding why the lumbar puncture is being used in that question. But you will not be asked about the purpose. It's just within you, in your brain, that you know the purpose why they are asking for, they are doing the lumbar puncture. Okay. Second, look at this in the description here. Okay. You will not be asking NCLEX on where to insert this. Don't worry about it. It will not be asking NCLEX, but it's going to be between L3 and L4. But that's non-NCLEX. Don't worry about it. This came out in NCLEX, the contraindication. So those people who have high ICP, they are not a good candidate for lumbar puncture. Why? Because if the ICP is high and they puncture the patient and the patient was punctured here, it's gonna pull the brain downward. Okay, it's called brain herniation. It is called brain herniation. If the ICP is high and they puncture the patient, that puncture hole, when you aspirate the fluid, will cause the brain to be pressed downward because of the high pressure in the brain. So that's why increased ICP is contraindicated. Now, there was a question that came out in NCLEX. So this is the background of the question. I can't remember the exact words, but this is the background of the question. The patient fell to the ground. So that means the patient fell, okay? So it's a case of injury, okay? Now, which among the following is not good or not warranted which among the following diagnostic tests is not warranted for this patient? And one of the options is lumbar puncture. Why lumbar puncture? For two reasons. Number one, this patient fell to the ground, so you're suspecting a possible fracture in the back. And you don't change the position, right? Because you may cause more injury. And how would you position the patient for lumbar puncture? You have to bend the back, which is not good for people with fracture. Although there's no fracture yet, but you're suspecting it because of the background of the question that says the patient fell to the ground. Second is, if there is an injury in the spinal area, it will cause an increase in the ICP, which is contraindicated to patients with for patients with increased ICP, it's contraindicated for them to go through a lumbar puncture. So just remember the concept for the increased ICP. Let's move forward. Now, next P, preparation. Of course, we will not talk about consent anymore. We're done with this. Okay, preparation. You have to make sure that the patient's bladder and bowel is empty before the procedure. Why do you think so? If it's possible, you have to make sure that the bladder and bowel is empty. Why? Okay. Why do you think so? Because after the procedure, the patient must remain flat on bed for 30 minutes to 1 hour, up to 2 hours. So you want to make sure that the patient will get up from the bed, going to the bathroom, because otherwise there's going to be a complication, which I'll discuss later. Okay. Now, what about for the position? Mr. Rado, will I be asking NCLEX about how are we going to position the patient? The answer is no. That's so easy. And you will not be asking NCLEX about it. But this is the position that for lumbar puncture, okay? It could, they will describe it. Lateral recumbent position or draws knees up to the abdomen. The bottom line is they need to make sure that there's enough space for them to puncture the spinal, okay? So, but you will not be asking NCLEX. It's non-NCLEX. Okay, look at this.